important is a professional wrestler's name, really? I mean, it's the only thing that people are going to know you as, something you could possibly be called on television, potentially in front of millions of people, that will follow you around for the rest of your life. So, the perfect opportunity for a rib then. Yes, throughout wrestling history, there have been instances of people, from jobbers to champions, being given names simply as a way to needle somebody else. And that is the sort of pettiness I can get on board with. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 professional wrestling names that were total ribs. Join us. Number 10, Freddy Joe Floyd. Tracy Smothers had already been wrestling for close to 15 years by the time he made it to WWE in June of 1996. Though the wild-eyed Southern boy was tenured and had enjoyed spells in various territories, including Memphis, Smoky Mountain, and WCW, the higher-ups in WWE felt the need to give him a new name. And thus, Smothers was rechristened Freddy Joe Floyd. While it might sound like a fairly generic Southern name to the untrained ear, it was actually a rib on legendary tag team Jack and Gerald Briscoe, whose names were Freddy Joe and Floyd respectively. As a little bit of extra, Freddy Joe Floyd was also billed as being from Bowlegs, Oklahoma, which is where the Briscoe brothers originally hailed from. Unfortunately for Smothers, being named after two such highly regarded pros didn't exactly do his WWE career any favors. Rooted firmly in the lower mid-card, Freddy Joe Floyd experienced few memorable moments, save for an upset victory over Justin Hawk Bradshaw, and Smothers had moved on to ECW after about a year. Number 9, Baron Corbin. Another light-hearted naming rib not rooted in spite, don't worry, there'll be plenty of those in a little bit, proves that former NFL player Thomas Pestock's wrestling alias wasn't determined via the NXT name generator 3000. The Lone Wolf has been variously known as King Corbin, Happy Corbin, Sad Corbin, and in some circles, Big Banter Corbin, but at the end of the day, he is Baron. And who gave him this winning name? NXT creative assistant Rob Naylor, that's who. After Big Tommy's multiple lists of proposed names were rejected by the office, Naylor suggested the name Baron Corbin as an allusion to Darren Corbin, a Midwest-based indie veteran who has worked for promotions such as IWA Mid-South, GCW, and Chikara in the past, as well as making the occasional appearance on WWE TV as an extra. Naylor has since noted that he felt sorry for Darren and even offered a light-hearted Twitter apology to him the night Baron Corbin destroyed CJ Parker at the second NXT TakeOver event. Don't worry, Rob, us Naylor maniacs will always have your back. Number 8, Akeem the African Dream. At 6 foot 9 inches and 450 pounds, George Gray didn't necessarily need to do a lot to turn heads. As the one-man gang, Gray forged a reputation as one of the wrestling business's most promising super heavyweights during runs in various territories in the early to mid-80s. It was really no surprise to see WWE snap him up in 1987. It was something of a surprise when, 1 year later, one-man gang got an image change after his manager Slick announced that he was going to embrace his African roots. Gray's rebirth as Akeem was controversial, and some took umbrage with the stereotyping on display in the reveal segment, in particular the Caucasian character's animated strut and jive way of talking. It may have been construed as racist by some, but Akeem's speech pattern and mannerisms were as much a shot at Dusty Rhodes as anything else. So too was the name The African Dream, an obvious play on the American Dream. I mean, come on guys, if you want to make fun of Dusty so bad, why don't you just hire him and put him in a polka dot singlet or something? Honestly. Number 7, Simon Dean. In a bid to escape WWE developmental and secure a main roster call-up, Mike Bucci, who was better known as former ECW star Nova, created a new gimmick that was a cross between fitness guru Jack LaLanne and Ben Stiller's White Goodman character from the movie Dodgeball. Bucci wanted his lycra-clad protein pusher to be called Sonny Slade and would promote via infomercials Sonny Slade's super system of self-help and supplements. But WWE decision-makers had a different idea. As Mike tells it, he was working a non-televised live event prior to making his debut proper when road agent Dean Malenko walked up and informed him of his new moniker. Bucci initially thought Simon Dean was something to do with Simon Says, before the man of 1,000 holds clued him in that it was actually his own name in reverse. Malenko came right out and said it was a rib on him and that somebody in creative thought it was funny, to which Bucci agreed. From then on, the two would greet each other backstage with a simple Dean Simon, Simon Dean, and honestly, the thing things these wrestlers get up to behind the scenes is just mad, isn't it? Number 6, Willie Watts. Paul Heyman's 1992 WCW departure was, shall we say, acrimonious. The man formerly known as Paulie Dangerously ended up filing a lawsuit against the company citing ethnic discrimination, with WCW ultimately settling with Heyman out of court for an undisclosed amount. The ethnic discrimination, according to Heyman, came from WCW's then executive vice president Bill Watts, who he claims made various anti-Semitic remarks towards him. When Heyman took over the creative in ECW, he spied the opportunity to get a shot in on the Cowboy. After announcer Joey Styles momentarily quit the promotion in 1994, Heyman briefly replaced him with somebody dubbed Willie Scoop Watts. Willie Watts happened to be an African American, which was Heyman's way of mocking the perceived racism of his old boss, whose own WCW exit came due to controversial comments he made about minorities during an interview. Scoop wasn't much of an announcer, however, and Styles returned after just a few weeks. Interestingly, this wasn't the first time somebody had used Watts as a rib on Cowboy Bill. Back in 1972, All South wrestling promoter Ann Gunkel named a jobber Gorilla Watts as a knock on the then booker for the local NWA offices. Number 5, Tripp Bradshaw. John Bradshaw Layfield liked a decent rib. You know, beating the hell out of people in the ring for fun while knowing there would be no repercussions, relentlessly hazing people backstage to see if they would have a breakdown. If there was a lark to be found, you can bet JBL would find it. The former WWE champion became the butt of the joke, however, after WWE cameras caught him slipping. JBL was trying to come to the aid of Jerry Lawler, who had been struck in the chest by Dolph Ziggler during a King's Court segment in an allusion to King's very real heart attack in 2012 when he stumbled over. This alleviated the tension of the segment somewhat, but WWE couldn't resist letting the joke stop there. And so, on the next week's episode of 205 Live, Brian Kendrick went one-on-one with enhancement talent Tripp Bradshaw, played by Michigan-based indie wrestler Palmer Cruz. Tripp Bradshaw? Get it? Wink wink, nudge nudge. No, I'm just kidding. I love it, Mago. Now go and get me a beer before I make your life a living hell. Number 4, Scott Colton and Chris Guy. Indie stalwarts Colt Cabana and Ace Steel both had spells in WWE, with Cabana enjoying, I suppose, a short run as SmackDown superstar Scotty Goldman, while Steel had a couple of stints in the promotion's developmental leagues. They were certainly on WWE's radar in the mid-2000s, which naturally led to segment work and squash matches as Vince McMahon and co weighed up their potential. On the September 27th, 2004 episode of Monday Night Raw, Steel was involved in a segment designed to build up Eugene's match with Eric Bischoff at the upcoming Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view. It was Steel's job to act as a visual representation of the hair versus hair stipulation, and Eugene ended up cutting off the then Ring of Honor star's locks, while Bischoff gave him a martial arts kick to the chest. Before he received his trim, Steel gave his name as Scott Colton, which is Cabana's actual name. Returning the favor, Cabana went by the name Chris Guy, Steel's real name, when he did job duty in a match with Umaga on the April 10th, 2006 edition of Raw. The Windy City lads were clearly good friends, though these days they're sadly unable to talk to one another since CM Punk got Steel in the divorce. Number 3, Randy Hogan. So this is not so much a name, but a whole presentation designed to take the piss out of another promotion's top star. Most jobbers tend to be average looking by design in order to further enhance the superstar they're being paid to put over, but there was one human punching bag from the late 80s and early 90s that had a remarkably familiar appearance. Well, kind of. With his balding blonde hair and handlebar moustache, Randy Mule was given the moniker Randy Hogan by a promoter in Athens, Georgia, and did the honors for the likes of Sting, Rick Steiner, and the Road Warriors in NWA squash matches. He then started getting work with WWE, who changed his name to Scott Colton, which, based on what we've just talked about, I can only assume was some sort of time travel rib on Mr. Cabana. Randy then went back to WCW for a couple more pin me pay me gigs in the mid-90s before the Hulkster arrived proper. Randy, who had vetoed an original pitch of Hal Hogan, has said, per Jimmy Hart, that Terry Bollea had no issues with the name. Number 2, Davey Meltzer. One of the most controversial people in the wrestling industry today say, is a bloke in his mid-60s that writes a newsletter. Dave Meltzer has been covering the professional wrestling business for decades, reporting extensively on the good, bad, and ugly of the grap game. In that time, he's attracted admirers and detractors, with many of the latter coming from within the industry itself. Cocaine and cowboy boot aficionado Herb Abrams was evidently not a fan of Meltzer's. The ill-fated UWF promoter had Steve Williams beat up a mulleted beer-bellied jobber named Davey Meltzer at the promotion's first set of television tapings. After getting pulverized by Dr. Death, Davey had sheets of paper stuffed into his mouth. Those in wrestling referred to Meltzer's newsletter and others like it as dirt sheets, you see. Few fans in 1990 would have clocked these references, but Abrams was a lunatic with a TV show, so it sure as well happened anyway. Meltzer came back to eat beatings from Cactus Jack and the Black Knight on subsequent episodes before Herbie presumably got tired of the gag. I mean, I'd give it about 1 3/4 stars personally. Number 1, Virgil, and then Vincent, and then Shane. Mike Jones wrestled one WWE job match as Luscious Brown before being brought back a year later as Virgil, servant to the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. A year before Akeem the African Dream became a thing, giving Jones the name Virgil was a shot at Dusty Rhodes, whose real name was Virgil Runnels. The name was suggested by Bobby Heenan as a jab at the WCW wrestler and booker. Virgil had a decent run in the Fed, hanging around for a commendable 7 years before leaving and then resurfacing in WCW right as the Monday Night Wars were heating up. Jones was brought in to be the bodyguard for the New World Order, but Eric Bischoff couldn't call him by his most famous moniker, which was trademarked by WWE. So he did the next best thing and reciprocated the rib by calling his new acquisition Vincent. Like Vincent Kennedy McMahon, of course. I mean, I think you made your point when you called Mike Rotunda VK Wall Street a year earlier, lads, but nevertheless, as if the rib hadn't run its course by that point, Jones was later renamed Shane. I forget, was WCW where the big boys play or where dead horses go to get beaten?